Hello and welcome to another exciting installment of Invisible Tutorial, or really, I should probably call this something else. It's kind of blatant, some of the tutorial information you get here, so tutorialization is probably a better name. Anyways, that's not important. We're talking about another game. So before we actually move on to the game itself, I want to do a quick anatomy lesson on the N64 and the GameCube controllers. So as you can see, according to this Nintendo 64 controller graphic I got here, there's 3 prongs, and basically the 2 main grips you had were one hand on the left and the right prong, or your left hand on the middle prong and your right hand on the right. Now, if we jump forward to 2001 with the GameCube controller, pretty obvious to see that there's only one real correct way to hold this thing. That's great. So, on the left-hand side of the controller, you now have a much larger analog stick, making it apparent this is going to be your main form of motion. A smaller directional pad, which gives the implication it is a supplementary form of input that may be used, but is not going to be the main thing the developers are expecting you to use. Then you have the L button, the only other thing the controller has on this side of it. So on the right half of the controller, you have the large green A button and its complementary smaller red B button. Both add a nice contrast and stand out on any controller model you're using, helping to show that these are going to be your primary buttons. Followed by X and Y. Again, these are additional, probably important. You're probably still going to need them in just about anything you play, but you could probably go without them most of the time. After that, you'll see you have a secondary analog stick, which is small and yellow, again, kind of acting as a contrast to the main one, showing it's going to be important, not quite as important as the larger gray one. And finally, you have the right trigger and the Z button. So before we actually show off any footage, I do want to point out that I am using an original GameCube and a Carby 2, which converts the native digital video signal into an HDMI standard, which I then have plugged into my Elgato. There may be the occasional frame drop. That largely seems to be a problem with Streamlabs and this specific game not getting along for some reason. So with that out of the way, when the player first has control of Olimar, the camera's really zoomed in, which is nice and just kind of shows that, hey, you're not being able to see a lot from this angle, so be aware that you might want to change your camera angle in the future. And eventually you are going to run into an onion. You'll get a short little cutscene, and that introduces you to the first Pikmin, where the game just says, mess with these buttons, and I'm going to assume you figured out more or less what they all do. After realizing pressing A to throw Pikmin makes them do jobs, and that B tells them return to Olimar, as previously mentioned in the controller anatomy, you'll realize these are the 2 most important buttons in the game. So an interesting thing to notice here is that the pellet pose you put in gives you 2 Pikmin rather than 1, but when you put the 5 in, it gives you 5 rather than more than 5, indicating that there may be more than simply putting pellets in an onion. Once again, the idea of needing specific numbers of Pikmin is reinforced through the use of this box, which is marked, noting that you need 10 to be able to move it. After this, the player should see Olimar's engine and realize that they still don't have enough Pikmin. This adds just a final reinforcement of making sure the player has a decent number of Pikmin on them at any given time. The only other objects of interest here are going to be this stone wall, which you'll realize your Pikmin can't do anything with at the moment, and maybe you should just come back to that later. Some water and what appears to be a ship part, just saying you're going to need to come back to the area. Now, after that, you're going to go to the Forest of Hope, where you'll see 2 walls, one the stone one that you can't do anything with, and the other one this web wall. So that gives the player a couple of options. You can deal with these pellet posies, which now come in yellow, and you'll quickly notice that you do not get 2 for the ones, implying that maybe you need to match the colors up to get bonuses. Then you'll see this tall grass, which should produce some nectar, which you can use to make your Pikmin go from leaves to flowers, just showing there is obviously some upgrade there. Anyways, once you break through this wall, you'll be given the opportunity to have some combat with some relatively small enemies, and if you're lucky, you'll realize having a Pikmin land directly on top of them is an instant kill, showing that simply swarming or just chucking at random isn't necessarily the best strategy. After that, if you choose to interact with it, you'll notice there are bridges, and that water makes your Pikmin drown, so that's probably not good for now. Then you'll find another ship part, this larger enemy, and the bomb rocks, which you'll notice oddly, your red Pikmin do absolutely nothing with. So bring the ship part back if you can. If not, just continue, assuming you'll get a chance to get more Pikmin later. After this, you'll find the yellow Pikmin, where it can be assumed that they act a little bit differently than the red Pikmin. After you build their numbers up a bit, you're likely going to try and swarm the wall with them in your party, and to realize that yellows can pick up the bomb rocks, and that there's probably a connection between the stone walls and these bombs. You will also likely realize that there is very much friendly fire with them. So yeah, those guys are dead. They can die. They do that a lot. So progress some more, you'll notice there's another ship part, there's going to be the sheer grubs that you can kill, and another stone wall, but this time it's going to be black, and you'll notice it takes more bomb rocks, just indicating that any black walls take longer to get rid of. I think I also cheated here in the footage and just used the bomb to blow them up, which isn't something I mentioned, but you probably could put together that you could do that with the root walls too, so fun fact. Anyway, progress through the area and you will see a large yellow pellet on top of this tree stump. You'll notice the reds can't get up there, so let's try the yellows. Look at that, they go higher, in case you hadn't figured that out earlier. So, as you've done that, you'll probably notice that a day or two has passed and that you're timed, and most likely you've left a Pikmin behind because this is presumably the first time you've ever played the game, and now their deaths are gonna haunt you forever. But I don't know, there is some pretty sick music with it, so it's all okay in my book. Also, I didn't mention this yet, but you're supposed to take the corpses of enemies and turn them into more Pikmin by having them carry it back to the onion. I kind of forgot and thought this was pretty obvious, but I was likely wrong. But they just kind of sit there, and it's going to take long, and your Pikmin will probably try to pick them up as you pass them by. So, you know, there's fact again. Where was I? Oh yeah, so you should have done everything you're going to be learning in the Forest of Hope, and you should be able to move on to the Forest Navel at this point. Anyways, basically wander around, skiddly boop boop. Congratulations, you found the blue onion, and you'll notice it is in the water, which means the blue guys can go in the water without dying. That's a very, very important point. Now, I want to give this game a bit of criticism right here. This is where they also introduce fire, which in my opinion, they should have introduced in like the first area or the second area, to show that Pikmin are not immune to fire unless they're red, which is really dumb. Anyway, with that out of the way, you go and kill some stuff and boom, this introduces one of the best puzzles in the game, which honestly isn't that like neat, but it just makes sure you know all the different Pikmin abilities. It's like, all right, here's a fiery area. Be careful, don't let them get caught on fire. Also right here, this was really scary because I got hit by the geyser, and in all my experience except for just now, if you're not at full health when you're hit by the geyser of fire, it keeps hitting you and then you die, and then you leave all your Pikmin behind and they die, and then you actually feel bad about leaving a couple behind, and they're not just like, you know, the stupid idiot that got left behind. You're like, whatever, I don't care about you because you're stupid. So yeah, the puzzle's like, boom, take your Pikmin without them getting on fire. Boom, make a bridge. Boom, have the blues make the geyser work. Boom, through the yellows up there. Boom, send Olimar up there. Boom, throw the yellows at it again and have them carry it down. Now swap it out to the reds. All right, cool. They can carry it back. You're good. And then over here, you do a pretty good job of actually introducing the Candy Pop Bud. Basically, the Candy Pop Buds let you change a Pikmin's color by throwing them in there. So realistically, you're going to have a decent amount of blues and yellows with you. However, you'll probably notice that you might not have enough red. So it's like, here's this flower. Now, here's this bug that you have to throw things at to get it to do anything. Now, if you're lucky, some of them might fall and you're like, oh no, they're dead. Get thy numbers didn't go. So you'll probably throw more Pikmin in there. And then you'll realize, oh wait, they're all red now. That was pretty cool. Anyways, I think that's everything that like the game teaches you as a tutorial at this point that you really need to know. That's pretty cool. Also, screw the Wollywogs. I hate them. They suck. They kill you even if they're dead. Remind me to get footage for that game. As you can probably tell by the fact I made this video on a nearly 20-year-old game, I really like this game. And even though I just whined about it, I still think it's pretty good. I end up playing it like once or twice a year to completion because it takes like 6 hours. 100% the whole thing, and that's it when I'm bad and take like half the time it gives me, which some people are like, I'm gonna beat this in 5 games, and that works out to less than an hour. Anyway, if you have a GameCube, you can get Pikmin 1 or 2, or if you have a Wii, you can get the new Play Control Pikmin 1 and 2. Or if you have a Wii U, you could probably play it for about $80, with each GameCube entry being about $20 for the new Play Control version on the Wii U eShop, and you could probably find a used copy of Pikmin 3 for like $40 somewhere, probably eBay. GameStop's probably gonna rip you off and make you pay like $55 for a game that's been out for almost 7 years. I just looked it up. GameStop will rip you off if you try to buy it digitally from them. They charge you $60. The game is now $20 because it's like one of the 5 Nintendo games that got the honor of being a Nintendo Select. That means you should be able to buy it new digitally for $20. And what are they doing? That's right, they're charging 3 times more. It's no wonder they've been going out of business. Thank you. This has been my TED Talk. Bye.